Shalom and welcome to this week's Living Torah. And as I record this, it is the last day of 2024. So I pray that you would have a blessed, prosperous 2025. You know, it's an interesting day that we come up with January 1st. In ancient times, one of the things that a king would do in order to establish their leadership was to change the calendar, okay? And over 2,000 years ago, there was a king. At that time, a servant who I believe will return as a king, and he changed the calendar. And so every single person, at least the United States, in Europe, various places, are going to be coming face to face with this change of, I wrote down 2024, I got to cross that out and put my initials on there and, put 2025. And it's just kind of an in your face. It doesn't matter if you are an atheist, an agnostic, whatever your beliefs, whatever your non-beliefs are, this is a time in which people have to at least be presented with the fact that something changed 2025 years ago. With the change of year comes, of course, Kathy is working on sending out the reports, your statements for those of you who have been faithful in giving, and she's actually already started that. But I just want to take this opportunity for everyone who has given to this ministry, who has given to Israel, has said a prayer for us as a ministry, for myself, for Kathy. I just want to say thank you so much. This has been an amazing year of giving to Israel. And for those who I know, for many people, October 7th, 2023, is kind of like ancient history, and there's something maybe still going on in Israel. No, there's still a war that is being waged, and maybe this is a break in that, but understand, the war is not over. It is the message of Hanukkah, in which, as I'm speaking, we're in the last couple of days of Hanukkah, that that time period of 3 years was actually about a 33-year battle, but the war never ended. It is still, and the Father, I believe, is still looking for those who would rise in the spirit of the Maccabees and stand, take a stand, a firm stand, without any compromise for Him. So, thank you again for everyone who has been a part of this. 2025 has already brought forth some new opportunity for ministry. I'm not at liberty right now to talk about it. I will be very, very soon. In fact, in this message that I'm releasing in just a couple days, which is called Creation Speaks. Yeah, there it is. Creation Speaks. At the end of that, I did say a little bit about this to our partners. I'll be saying more about it later on as I can. But someone asked me the other day, yesterday, in fact, they said, "So, are you ever see yourself retiring?" And I said, "Probably not." Because every time that is just not something that is a possibility in my life, okay? And if I could, I doubt if I would, because this is what I do. And this is what I'm called to, and I still enjoy it very much. And so another opportunity coming, and we're going to embrace that and run with it. More information coming, hopefully, very soon. In this week's Torah portion, Genesis chapter 44, we're going to start in verse 18. He approached. And I want to set the stage this week with just a bit of a picture. I'd like you to imagine the tension. Consider the tension that is in the room. There is a building tension at this moment. Now, throughout the years, I have officiated, I have no idea how many weddings. I used to keep track, and I've just kind of lost track at some point in time. I've officiated weddings for many different people. For many people have had, various convictions regarding the, what would be proper for them prior to the wedding, prior to their honeymoon. And of course, there are biblical, instructions regarding that as far as limits. But others have taken that to a different place. And so what I'm about to say is not to condone or to make a standard here. But a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to officiate a wedding for some friends of mine. And they had made a decision that they would not touch prior to the wedding, the pronunciation of man and wife. They had held to this, except for I think one time they had been in a Hebraic dance and had actually held hands for a moment. This was prior to their engagement. But since their engagement, they had not touched in any way. They had not kissed. They had not hugged. Nothing. Okay, and I can remember as we were getting closer to, I came in a day early. We went through the rehearsal. And then the next day, and you could feel the tension in the air that was building between that couple. That is a picture of this tension that's happening in this room as Joseph, is there in front of his brothers. They still don't know who he is. There is writings to state that possibly Joseph had revealed himself to Benjamin. We don't know if that's actually true or not. We're not told that in Scripture. But with Joseph specifically, he knows who is standing in front of him. And the overwhelming tension, emotions, his heartbeat has got to be just off the charts at the moment. And in the midst of this, he is continuing to make demands on the brothers. Why? In order to test them. He has literally set up a scenario that is recreating what happened years prior to when the brothers betrayed him. And so in the midst of this, he brings forth Benjamin. Now, Benjamin is the one who, in the mind of the 10 brothers, Joseph, he may be dead. He may have been sold in slavery. They don't believe that they're ever going to see this man again. And so with that, they know that their father is going to give that firstborn blessing unto Benjamin. Now, we don't see any record of that already happening. I personally believe it is because that Jacob was still holding out faith that his son, he was holding on to those dreams as much as Joseph was holding on to those dreams. And so he had not passed that blessing on from Joseph unto Benjamin. With the boys, though, if Joseph is nowhere to be found, then up for grabs is this firstborn blessing, the Melchizedek priesthood of the family. And so they have every, it would be within reason to consider that they've been thinking at least to themselves, if not talking openly, but thinking to themselves, okay, who is going to take this? Well, obviously, it's going to go to Benjamin. But we have a scenario here that Benjamin may be taken out of the picture. And so if Benjamin's taken out of the picture, who gets the blessing? Who gets to walk in the Melchizedek priesthood of the family? And so Joseph has set up this scenario that is recreating what happened years earlier. And with that, it is Judah, that steps up. He has gone from a place of isolating himself and eventually meeting Tamar, all that happened there, to now becoming a leader in the family. Is this because of the motivation that possibly he could do something in order to get that blessing back? No, not really. Because if he saves Benjamin, then he is actually handing that blessing. And we probably don't understand this blessing today to the place that we can really relate to it. It was the major thing of a family of who was to get that blessing, who was to carry on the priesthood in the family, the Melchizedek priesthood, which was a priest and a king. Who was it that was going to carry that on in the family? This was the driving force behind all of the resentment, the jealousy, everything else. And so, with that, Judah is pretty much saying it's okay. Whoever is supposed to have the blessing, I'm going to be a part of the solution to this and not carry on the contentment and the jealousy and the resentment into another generation. So Judah stands up and goes from this place of isolation into a place of leadership in the family. Joseph's heart is, as the idiom would be, beating out of his chest. He is probably, his breathing is rapid. He is probably sweating. The brothers might be looking at him and saying, what is going on with this guy? Because here's what is happening. Joseph is on the verge of seeing his dreams come to pass. Dreams that it looked like for many years as he was in that prison, it appeared that his dreams had been thwarted. But somewhere along the way, there was that continual seed that these dreams had been given to him by the Almighty. And there was maybe a bit of faith that continued along the way that had never been able to be extinguished totally. Maybe the flame of those dreams it looked like a candle that was almost to go out, but all of a sudden is now burning bright in the room. And Joseph, in the midst of that, is able to look at his brothers as Judah is going through the whole history. I mean, think about it. As Judah is going through the whole history of everything that's happened, and Joseph's like, yeah, I know this. I'm the one that's lived all of this. And eventually, it just becomes too overwhelming for him. In chapter 45, at last Joseph could no longer control his feelings in front of his attendants and cried, "Get everybody away from me." Now, I wonder if that was with this loud voice, or was it this cracking? Was it that moment, if you've ever had that time, and I have a lot of times a difficult time in a really emotional moment that, trying to get the words to come out, they're kind of like stuck. There's something that happens in your throat and air no longer is moving through your vocal cords. And so it may have been with this crackling that in his voice that Joseph tries to first get these words out of "I am Yosef." Now it says that he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard and Pharaoh's household heard it. But again, I mean, did they hear the words? Or did they hear just the emotion coming forth? Again, think of yourself in the room. Put yourself there. There's a reason for this, putting yourself in the room. If this is true, that this is how it's happening, maybe that's why the brothers are like, what? I think I heard what you said, but I was having a hard time with the words. And by this time, by the way, his Hebrew is probably being spoken in an Egyptian accent. This is the first time that they have heard him speak Hebrew. Up until this time, he has spoken to them, probably, in Egyptian, through an interpreter. But now all of a sudden, this guy is speaking Hebrew. They're like, what was that? And so it says, he says, is it true that my father is still alive? His brothers couldn't answer him. They were so dumbfounded at seeing him. Joseph said to his brothers, please come closer. And they came closer, and he said these beautiful words, maybe some of the most beautiful words of all of Scripture are right here in this verse. Ani Yosef Aki. Ani Yosef Aki. I am Joseph, your brother. Why should this affect us to such a level of emotion today? Because this is the moment in time that you and I should be looking for. If we are right. Now, understand when I say if we are right. That is not to take away my faith. My faith is beyond, as close to, beyond a shadow of a doubt as maybe a human being can have. I'm not trying to set myself above others. And let me be very clear to you. If you don't at times have doubts about your faith, I would venture to say that either you're not human, or number two, you're not honest. A number of years ago, I was at a conference, and we had a time of prayer. You know, the leaders got up there for the prayer line and all this stuff. And a young lady that I've known very well through the years came up, and I said, what do you need prayer for? And she said, Mike, I just have moments of doubt. Is this real or not? And I looked at her and said, well, thank you for your honesty. Join the crowd. For I don't know any of us, if we're truthful with ourselves, that don't have moments of doubt. So my faith is that Yeshua, the Netzer, the branch, is and was Mashiach ben Yosef, the suffering servant, the one that is prophesied in these chapters of the book of Bereshit, Genesis. There is no doubt in my mind, as much as I can say that he will return as Mashiach ben David, the conquering king. Will set up his throne in Jerusalem, in a temple, whatever that looks like at the time, in a temple in Jerusalem, and will rule and reign from the Horabite, the Temple Mount, for 1,000 years, and that will lead us into the place of the 8th day. That's about as simple as I can possibly get. That he is 100% Yud-He Vav-He, the Torah that entered into and inhabited a human body for a time period upon this earth. Okay? Let me get out of my doctrinal statements here. But if that is what you agree with, then the scenario that I have just read is the scenario that is happening right now in the heavenly realm. We see the prophecies of 6 days of creation. We see that explained to us in the book of Psalms, Peter, other books that are outside of Scripture reveal to that as a day is 1,000 years, 1,000 years is a day. And so we're in that 6,000 year time period. Back to the 2 days and on the third day that I've talked about through the last weeks. We're in that period of time. Do we have it right? I don't know yet. Okay? None of us are going to know until this all happens. And I know that others have prophesied. They've had, quote unquote, prophesied. There's been books written, timelines established, all of those things. Okay, they've been wrong. But what is more, what brings more joy to the Father's heart? A person that may have gotten over exuberant in seeing something in Scripture and maybe was wrong, or of a person that never cares about it, about his kingdom coming. Which one? Okay. So I'm not making fun and pointing fingers at people that have been wrong. They've been wrong, okay. But one day someone is going to be right. Is there today a tension building? A tension in the heavenly realm that is building? That the one who walked this earth as Mashiach ben Yosef is now standing and realizing the dream of the family, the establishment of his words, of his prayer, that they may be one, is right on the edge. And understand this, according to this chapter right here, Judah will play a pivotal role in this when Judah becomes a people who are not just living in isolation, but have now become more family oriented. The restoration of the family and not just the restoration of Judah. Do I see some of those things happening today? Absolutely. As someone that's, this is going to be in just a few short months, this will be the 27th anniversary of going to Israel for the first time. And I can tell you that 27 years ago, though I probably didn't have enough understanding, if it would have been in front of me to know what was going on, I didn't see it. 25 years ago, when my understanding, my revelation of Ephraim and Judah was in its infancy state, I didn't see it. With what I saw this past February, and Bezrat Hashem, God willing, I'll be there again. I'm planning to go in February of this year, of 2025. I'm seeing more. I'm seeing that I'm feeling that tension that is between the family. Not the tension that has been for 2,000 years. But a tension that most of the family does not even understand. because I believe that Mashiach ben Yosef is going to be revealed soon as Mashiach ben David. We'll see. Now, verse 5. Where am I at? I am Yosef. And then he says, I was sent here. Verse 7, God, Elohim sent me ahead of you to ensure that you will have descendants on earth and to save your lives in a great deliverance. Joseph has the opportunity at this moment for the ultimate revenge moment. He has the opportunity for the ultimate I told you so moment. But instead of that, he looks at the brothers and says, it was the God of our father, our grandfather, and our great-grandfather that sent me into this land so that you could be alive today to see my face. I have to stop and wonder, when this revelation comes about, how many messianics are going to want to stand up and say, I told you so? Because arrogance toward the family is alive and well in this movement. And maybe that would explain a lot of things. We're standing on the edge of the dreams. We today, the ones I believe to be a prophetic fulfillment of Binyamin, those who are following Yeshua as Mashiach ben Yosef, are obedient to his commands, those that are spoken of in the book of Acts, those that are spoken of in Revelation. We need to be careful and understanding we're just part of this process. But we need to be committed to the process. Kathy and I saw the movie Bonhoeffer, and it's on Angel. You can go online and sign up for the subscription to Angel. I find it a whole lot more profitable than a lot of other things on television. But we started watching Bonhoeffer a week or so ago, and it was. I know the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I've taught on his life many times, but there was a lot of things I did not know. Some of his connections, various things, and I have to tell you, the first part of the movie was dreadfully slow, but it was setting the stage. The last part of the movie was well worth the investment of time. His camaraderie with Martin Niemöller, who ended up in Sachsenhausen concentration camp. I was actually there many years ago and saw the jail cell that he was held in. And the end result, the death of Bonhoeffer, for those who like to watch the movie, I won't give you everything. But here's a man that was committed to a dream, committed at the expense of his own life. And I wonder if that type of commitment, I wonder if this movie being put out in just recent months is very timely in history of days that you and I may be walking into. I don't know. Now, it goes on and says that that Yosef, that I almost put the two together, Yosef tells the boys, go get your father, bring him down to Egypt. In my estimation, well, the best thing to do was Joseph to look at the Pharaoh and say, I'm done here, sir. I've done everything that I need to do. I'm going back to Canaan. But instead, Canaan comes to Egypt, which tells us this, that exile has a purpose. Though the boys may be together as a family, there's still many things that need to be worked out. Now, I want to, once again this year, focus on two words that are in chapter 45, one of them being in verse 20, when Joseph is giving instructions to the boys about their trip. Don't worry about your stuff, because everything good in the land of Egypt is yours. Again, going back to beans, bullets, and band-aids, it is best to put Bible, Scripture, ahead of all of those things, because that is our source. That is our provision. Everything will come out of that. Seek first the kingdom of Yah, and all these things will be added unto you. In this month's message, to make a commercial message in the midst of this, of Creation Speaks, what I talk about is what does creation speak to us about? Creation is telling us some very crucial things about life today and what may be life in the coming months. And so if we understand what is being taught to us from out there, we will be able to walk through this and not be so concerned about the stuff that may, in the end, become a great burden to us. Okay? I'm not speaking against preparation, but I'm speaking against when preparation begins to become a burden to our walk. Number two is, in verse 24, thus he said to his brothers on the way as they left, he said to them, don't quarrel amongst yourselves while you're traveling. Now, the word in King James is don't fall out. All right? If you speak King James, you understand that one, but I don't really speak it. So I think that there's other words, and I think that David Stern did a pretty good job on this one. He had to stretch it just a little bit from the Hebrew word, which means be troubled. Okay, it means to quake, to tremble. Don't be scared, don't be frightened. But did he, the word trouble comes out here of be trouble. Could this have been the word from Joseph? Don't cause trouble, okay? Don't cause trouble along the way. He knew his brothers very well. He knew that they had probably, they were probably walking in the words of Will Rogers, people change, but not much. And so the same personalities that they had many years ago is the same personality they're still walking in. They have not spent, except for Simeon, they have not spent the time in the prison that Joseph did. So don't cause trouble along the way, which is a really good word of counsel unto us today, especially when you look at social media. I still see people that just post something to cause trouble. Let's see how many comments I can get by posting something that, let's face it, folks, is stupid. Okay, let's post something else on the flat Earth, or whatever it may be. Let me post something that's just going to cause controversy in the end, so that I can get a little bit more entertainment in life. Maybe instead of entertainment, get a job so you can do something constructive. I'm not talking to any of you, but I mean, if you've been guilty of doing that, then I guess I am talking to you. I've been guilty of that. Let's just post a comment here to somebody else's stupidity to see if I can cause an end to the stupidity. No, it continues to go, because as the sign says, you can't fix stupid. Or as a plaque that someone gave me very recently. You cannot fix stupid with duct tape. You can, however, muffle the sound, okay? But it is a difficult thing, so let's don't add to the stupidity of the world today. Now, what does he say to them? They go back, the boys reveal themselves of what has happened. They come clean with what they did to their brother, and they're telling the story of what's happening, what's going on. Jacob, however, basically says in verse 28, it says, Israel said. It's very important that he's not using the word Jacob here, the earthly, natural realm thinking man, but the spiritual realm thinking man, whose name is Israel, says, enough. My son Joseph is still alive. I must go and see him before I die. Let me translate that into this. Quit talking, let's go. Now, it's one thing to tell them in the emotion of the moment, quit talking, let's go. But then when the moment turns into the event, Jacob ends up with some thoughts, some doubts along the way. And in chapter 46, Israel took everything he owned with him on his journey. He arrived at Beersheba and offered sacrifices to Elohim, the father of Isaac, of his father Isaac. In a vision at night, Elohim called to Israel, Yaakov, Yaakov. And he answered, here I am. And he said, I am Elohim, the Elohim of your father. Don't be afraid to go down to Egypt. Okay, let me stop right there. Why does he say, Israel said, and then Israel took, and begins on the way, but then he says, Yaakov, Yaakov? I believe it is because Yaakov is along the way as he comes to Beersheba, a very prominent prophetic place for his family. He's like, wait a minute, am I walking in a manner which is in keeping with the covenant or not? He begins to have doubts in his physical man. He begins to have doubts. So the vision is speaking to Jacob, the natural man. Jacob, you need to understand that I've been in control the whole time, and you need to start thinking again as Israel, not as Jacob. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is a message for us today. Are we thinking from the spiritual realm, or are we thinking from the natural realm? Is everything we do in life based upon the fears that are being propagated and being the news, the events that are going on in the world today? Those are all their meaning, their desire, the intent of those behind these things is to cause us to walk in fear instead of walking in faith. See, simply put, faith is when you're thinking and acting from the spiritual realm. Fear is when you're thinking and acting from the natural realm. The two should come together, but it should begin, our thoughts and actions should begin in the heavenly realm. Again, the scriptures seek first the kingdom of Elohim, and all these things shall be added to you. That is an instruction on where our thoughts should begin. And then our actions should be carried out. He says, don't be afraid, which means, I know you're afraid. Don't be afraid. I got this covered. To go down to Egypt, it is there that I will make you a great nation. Not only will I go down with you to Egypt, but I will bring you back here again after Joseph has closed his eyes. This is prophesying the words that we will read in a few weeks of Exodus chapter 3. It's also prophesying about a pattern that is exile. The pattern in exile for the family of Yah, this has been more prevalent probably in Judah, in the southern kingdom, in the Jews. Okay, they have shown us the pattern. Why is that? Because for the most part, Judaism has been closer to the actual written word. So I'm not going to go into that any further. But that would be a whole message in itself. So the pattern of exile is this. Slavery, prominence to slavery to prominence to slavery to prominence to slavery. It is a prophecy that is going to be of exile, slavery, and return. And that's what we're going to see in Genesis, these last chapters of Genesis, going into the first chapters of Exodus, and then the rest of the Torah, is the process of exile, then slavery, which has its purpose with the Hebrews in expanding the number of the family, making the family larger, okay? But then the return of that larger family. So what would go into Egypt as 70 something would come out as hundreds of thousands of people. So if you find yourself in a place that looks like exile, there is a purpose for that. If you find, and of course we're all in exile, if you find yourself in a place that looks like kind of slavery at times, there's a purpose for that. Everything has a purpose in his way of doing things. So they are sent into Goshen. Again, Joseph, knowing his family, is putting a place of separation. The Almighty himself has put a place of separation. Why is it that the Egyptians, it says in chapter 46, the last verse, for any shepherd is abhorrent to the Egyptians? That just doesn't make sense. It makes no sense that a shepherd would be abhorrent to an Egyptian, because the Egyptians, they got a lot from sheep, and the only way to get things from sheep, like clothing and meat and all this, and milk and whatever it is, the only thing that you can imagine is that the Almighty himself put into Egypt this abhorrence, so that there would be a natural separation between his family and the Egyptians. What we will continue to read about is when that line began to be blurred. Is that line blurred today? Are we? We just went through the holiday season, right? We just went through December 25th. Next in line, already on the shelves from what I heard, February 14th. Next in line, won't be too far from now, bunnies, eggs, all of those things. And you and I are the ones, the other day, this would be, since I was online, I think last time, some guys I was on a golf course with, and they were talking behind my back as I was getting ready to hit the ball, and I heard them talking, and I turned around. I said, "What was that?" And they were like, "Oh, nothing, Mike, nothing." Well, what they didn't know is I heard everything they said, and they're like, "Well, he doesn't observe Christmas. Yeah, he's in some kind of weird cult." Okay, because I'm biblical. I'm in a cult? Really? Here's two guys that there was no real meaning of Christmas to them that I know of, and I'm the one in the cult? If you're not invited to some these, it's okay. If you're not invited to, when the guys go out or the girls go out or these families are, and you find yourself, well, I didn't know that there was a party. Well, yeah, we forgot to tell you. Don't get upset about that. Because if you fit in, then you're not living in exile, you're living in a simulation. The key is that we're all living in exile today. Exile is where we're called to be. We're not called to be in a simulation. Because the moment that we accept a simulation is when we accept the fact that we are one generation from losing our identity in who we are in Him. All right? The pattern: exile, slavery, prominence, slavery, prominence, slavery. That pattern is going to continue. It will only be broken in the kingdom. We got to wait. But I don't know about you, but I just feel like there's a tension building in the world today. A tension for a revelation of Mashiach ben Yosef as Mashiach ben David. May that be soon. And may that be in our day. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov. Have a blessed, prosperous week. Bezrat Hashem. God willing. See you again next year. Yeah, next week. Until then, be strong.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha Shalom.